Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're doing well because today we're talking about music and today we're talking about music books. Now, the holidays are coming up and obviously it's a great time to catch up on, some nice box sets and some albums that maybe we've been putting on our list, but it's another good time as well to kind of do some reading and, maybe learn about the genres we love, the bands we love, or try something new. So I've taken five books that kind of cover a range of topics that I care about. Some I want to care about, and we'll get into that too. But just five books that I would recommend for the music aficionado that could be you or in your life as well. So this first one is a great book. Sell Out, the major label feeding frenzy that swept punk, emo, and hardcore at 1994 to 2007 by Dan Ozzie. This is the hardcover. I believe it's also out in paperback now as well. And actually, you can see there every album that it goes through. So each chapter is one of these albums, and it's written more or less chronologically. So start in '94 with Green Day Dookie. We cover bands like Jawbreaker, Jimmy Eat World, Blink 182, At the Drive-In. And each chapter is dedicated to their first album on a major label. And the thing I love about this book is what it's exploring is why was this band put on a major label? How did it change the band's ethos? Did it change relationships within the band? What was the state of the band before the album? Did it impact the band's sound at all? So we start with Green Day Dookie, who, they take a lot of care to be like, despite them borrowing a lot of the punk sound, they never made claims of having, a certain political ethos. And so when people started accusing them of being sellout, it was like, what do you mean? We're a rock band, and that's kind of, and we were going for that punk image, but we've never made claims to be of a, certain political ilk, things like that. Um, we cover bands like Jawbreakers, Dear You, who they were a band that were kind of already on the verge of breaking up. And I believe they had one more album left in them before breaking up. Jimmy Eat World, Static Prevails. Again, big hits, but I think bigger albums for them would come. My Chemical Romance, Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge, probably my favorite album by them. I know a lot of people would pick that one, or Black Parade. Three Cheers is better. Thursday World. This is just a really, really great book, especially if you're into these albums and the genre as a whole. But even if you're not, it's really cool to see in what ways does signing on a major label impact a band's relationships or sound. So really cool book. Highly recommend. Next one. So we talked about, one of the genres I loved, still do, pop punk and emo. The other one that I'm really into is, ska, rocksteady, and reggae. So this is Young, Gifted, and Black, the story of Trojan Records, who I believe have a newer version. They certainly did a documentary called, I think it's called Rude Boy, the story of Trojan Records, which is really cool. The thing I like about this book is it came with a compilation CD, I believe just 11 tracks. And that was one of my first introductions into much more kind of traditional Jamaican rooted early ska music, which is great. Not only that, so you've got kind of the book sort of split into two halves. You have your, your typical pictures in the middle. You've got we've got Toots and the Maytals there, stuff like that. So the first half of the book is the history of Trojan Records. The second half is just the entire catalog. There we go. So singles, albums, it's got everything there. So if you're a collector and you want to get into collecting that kind of music because you just have some sort of never-ending pile of cash that you can get into, seek this one out. But I mean, this is a great book. It comes with a compilation CD. You get the history of the label, you get some pictures, you get the catalog. It's kind of a great one-stop shop. And then if you want to know more, or if you're more kind of a visual person, the documentary is really, really good too. I believe it's called Rude Boy. Um, yeah, great one, great one. Next, why don't we go for what I've got down in here in my lap? Please don't demonetize me. It's something I've got on Kindle. And for some reason, it's been a while since I read this book and I went to go look at the cover. But I guess the ebook version I have didn't have a cover, it just starts on the acknowledgements page. But it's called Decomposed, the Political Ecology of Music. I believe that's right. And what it's about is the history of physical media in terms of music. So we start I mean, we talk about the Edison cylinders a little bit, but it really starts with shellac and those records, which I had no idea how they were produced. Spoiler alert, they come from beetles. Cool, I never knew that. And then into vinyl, and then from there we go, tapes and CDs, to MP3s and streaming. And it talks about the environmental impact. Sure, like, what's good about this type of method, what's bad about this type of method, but just in what ways does it impact the listening experience, and how do these different kind of changes in form and format, how do those impact the commercial markets? Not so much from the consumption point of view, like for us music fans and listeners, but more of the production point of view. Um, so, I mean, it does get into like what is the most environmentally friendly way to listen to a record. And I think you can find, or music, and you can find an interview, and he says, I think broadly speaking, it's if you're going to listen to something less than 27 times, um, streaming. And then if you're going to listen to something more than 27 times, I mean, obviously a used copy, but CD, I believe, is what it's in there. And that's it's still in there. And that's kind of an important point, but it's more just a fascinating look at, like, we think streaming, is in the air, but it's actually these server farms, and what is the environmental impact of these server farms, and the creation of CDs, what goes into the creation of a CD. It was a really, really fascinating book, that I really like learning sort of the economics of physical media, which is really cool. Let's go with this one next. This is by Tim Derling, called Unspooled, an adventure in 8-track. Now, I'm not an 8-track collector. I don't think I ever want to be or will be, but this is a really cool book for, I mean, presumably the folks watching this, we're collectors of physical media of some kind, right? Maybe it's not music, but maybe it's movies, maybe it's cookware, thrifted finds, things like that. And this book scratches that itch. It's got stories, it's got really cool pictures, it's got the Columbia, more or less complete kind of Columbia House catalog for 8-tracks, really cool pictures of 8-tracks of different varieties. It's just a great, what I say, maybe coffee table book. Just, with the size of the format, and then we've got like this modified picture there. Pretty fun. And it's just a really, really fun read, and it kind of gets you excited to collect for whatever it is you're collecting. So Unspooled by Tim Derling, highly recommended. This last one I'm going to recommend, I haven't even read yet, but I've heard very good things. And that's why I'm recommending it, because it's the next on my to-read list for music books. Don't Call It Hair Metal, Art in the Excess of 80s Rock by Sean Kelly, who you may recognize as well. And same thing, we got kind of partway through the book, our collection of images. What have we got here? We got Ozzy, some Kiss, some Poison. There we go. 80s rock, hair metal, glam metal, whatever you want to call that, is a genre I want to learn more about, get into. I'm certainly familiar with, in the 70s, you have those, hard rock and prog influences kind of bouncing back and forth, and a lot of bands kind of sharing the two. And I'm familiar with, the early Black Sabbath catalog, and more familiar with groups like Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, stuff like that. But then you get, Rat, Poison, those kinds of groups, Wasp, things like that, except bands certainly heard a lot about on YouTube, but ones that I didn't really grow up listening to, don't have much of an attachment to, but I want to learn about, why were these bands important, what makes this kind of music worth remembering. So that's why that's next on here. So those are just 5 books that my hope was I'm kind of covering not just a wide variety of genres and takes. We have some that are about genres, Sellout, pop punk, emo, hair metal, stuff like that, ska, reggae, but just music collecting in general, and the physical impact of physical media in general as well. And those are my 5 books, but I'd like to know kind of what books on music are you reading right now. Leave them in the comments below, and I will catch you next time. Bye.